Hey guys, it's Patrick. If you are considering whether you should rent or buy a home and are considering the financial implications, there's a really easy way you can calculate for yourself what the best option is. Let's dive into Excel and see how you can do it.
All right, let's dive into it. Here we have our rent versus own analysis. And this is just an Excel sheet that's going to calculate. In the yellow is everything that we fill in from assumptions. And then white is everything that we don't have to fill in that's going to be based off of it. So I just have ones in for everything right now. And when we go through the sheet, this will auto populate and change based off what our assumptions are. So first, let's go to finding a purchase price for the home. So we'll click on the link here, take us to Zillow. We want something in Austin, Texas. So the goal is obviously to find something that you would consider buying on here. So we'll change this to for sale. This looks like a good option here. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath home. A nice part of Austin, 1,800 square feet. Let's say that this is going to be our purchase price. We'll type in $650,000 for our purchase price. Now for the rent, what's great about Zillow is that we can just, for stuff for rent that's nearby here, we want something that's 3 beds, 2 baths, about 1,800 square feet in the similar area. This is right next to it. This is pretty close. It looks like it's going to be about 2,400 to 2,700. So let's say it's 2,450 per month. So since we're doing this for the year, we do 2,450 times 12 months. So we get an annual rent of 29,000. Now to check our rental growth rate, I actually included a sheet here. So what we would do is we would go to Austin, Texas and see what the rental growth rate is. So we can start up at the top here, look for Austin. Here we go, we got Austin, Texas. And we could see that the total average growth rate for the rent over year, so we had a negative, positive, big jump in 2022. So let's call it about the average, the 3.13%. We could use that. So we'll do 3.13%. Now for the property growth rate, we can click on it. And let's say that we want Austin, Texas. Let's go to Market Insights. Let's look at the past 5 years and see what we can find. So this looks like there's actually been a reduction. Minus 5%, minus 6%, plus 20%, plus 20%, plus 12%, 9%. So it looks like there was a big spike here in 21, 22, which is what we saw in the rent too, but it's somewhat steady and decreasing. Minus 5%, minus 6%. Let's say, the average is, let's say it goes up on average maybe 2 or 3% a year. So let's keep it close to the rental growth rate and just say it's about 3% increase per year. And to calculate our insurance costs, we can use this home insurance calculator. So we'll just go to Texas and find the average. So Texas, and it's going to be a $650,000 property, and we'll say we'll have this. The average is going to be $3,200, the high end $5,400. So let's say we'll kind of split the difference between these two to be on the safer side, and we'll say it's about $4,000 a year for insurance. Again, with insurance, it depends on the property and it depends on a lot of different factors. You have to get an actual quote. That's just a very general average. To calculate our maintenance cost, I found this article on State Farm. Rule of thumb to set 1 to 4% of your home's value for home maintenance. The home doesn't look too old, so we'll say we're going to take 2% of the home value. So we'll do 2% times our home value here. So $13,000 a year set aside for that. And the expense growth is just going to be equal to inflation. And we can see what people are saying about inflation here. So they say it's 1.9%, falling under 2% inflation target. You can include, about 2%. Right now, we're closer to 2.5%, 3%. So we'll call it 2.25% for inflation. Marginal tax rate, you can use this calculator to figure out what percentage you're on. So whether you're single, someone's dependent, we'll say no. Single, say you make $150,000 a year, we're going to be in the 24% tax rate. Say we're in the 24% tax rate. Property tax percentage. All right, so we'll click this to get our property tax percentage. So let's enter our zip code. Again, that was 78745. 787. And our assessed home value is $650. Okay, so 1.77% is going to be our average county tax rate. 1.77%. Selling expenses. Zillow has this, the estimated selling cost of 10.65% that they use for everything. Now, to calculate your down payment, there's a couple different options, especially with residential. You get different home options. In this location, you can choose your credit score. There we have good credit. A couple different options we can get. 5% down, 20% down. The different terms we can get. You see our down payments, monthly mortgage, etc. So let's say we only have to put 5% down. We calculate our interest rate. This is a conforming mortgage, 600,000. Down payment's 5%. We're in Texas. Credit score, we say, 700 to 719. So it says 7.531%. Okay. Percent. And our loan term is going to be 30-year mortgage, and we have 12 payments per year. Now we can see what our results are. See our annual payments to cover the loan constant, and our down payment here. Go through the years, principal balance paying going up, property values, where it's going versus where rents are going, property taxes, cash outflows. So if you're the owner of the property, right, so you have property tax expense, you have your insurance expense, maintenance expense, and your payments on principal and interest. So this is everything that you're spending every year to own the home. You can deduct property taxes and interest from taxes to get your tax write-off here. So you can write this off from your taxes. Those are tax savings from owning a home. So these are your cash outflows before taxes. After tax cost, it's going to be this. Now let's count to the renting calculation. This is just pure rent. Compare that cost of renting versus cost of owning. So you can see, like, year over year, how there's a substantial difference. And you'll see this in a lot of markets, how much you're spending in a year for renting versus owning, right? Own versus rent. You see there's a negative balance here. But let's say, we end up selling the home. We add in our selling cost here, paying off the mortgage balance. And here we get any benefit from the two. Real quick note, after-tax IRR, ATIRR, or after-tax IRR. This is basically your compounded annual growth rate. And anything that you see that is positive means that you're making money year over year. And typically, you'd want to see a rate of return for an investment greater than what you could get on your money compared to an alternative investment. For example, the stock market has about an 8% annualized return year over year. So you want any sort of investment to be above 8%. If you saw an IRR above 8%, then that means that money is better spent there versus something like the stock market. Now, again, this is something that you have to consider for yourself. What return is good enough for you or is required for you in order to make an investment for yourself when purchasing a home versus renting. You can pick your own threshold for what would be a good amount and what you would need to happen or what numbers you would need to get in order for that to make it work. But real quickly, that's what that means. And when you see the ATIRR, it's just after taxes, the cash flows that you're getting when purchasing a home and calculating your annualized rate of return. And then you have to make the decision whether or not that's a good enough return for you to purchase the home. A lot of red text here. If you sell within a year or 2 or 3 years, there's no positive cash flows. That means even after you sell the home and deduct your selling costs, you're not even gaining anything from the sale. So you haven't gained anything from purchasing the home. It isn't until year 4 even that you even get to see a positive cash flow. But that singular positive cash flow isn't enough compared to how much you've been spending to own the home. As you can see, we have no positive outcomes here. So in this market, for this particular example, absolutely would make more sense to rent. Let's try another example. So now I filled this in for Tampa. See all the numbers here that we filled in? Let's look at the results. So this one's a little bit different. So again, pretty negative in the beginning, but towards about, let's say we turn positive in year 6 here, we actually get a positive return. So it looks like if you're looking to own a home in this particular part of Tampa, where I picked this house in comparables, it could make sense to own if you were going to be there longer than maybe 6 or 7 years. You would actually start to get the positive return. But if you were just going to be there for a couple years, doesn't make any sense. You should just definitely rent. And there's not even any positive cash flows at all till year 2. But if you were here for the long term, then it makes sense to rent, even at today's interest rates. Again, that's assuming no refinance or anything like that. So I hope you guys can see, using this calculator and playing around with the numbers a little bit. You can try different numbers, try different assumptions to see how it affects. Let's say you think maybe insurance is going to be a little bit more expensive in Tampa. You could see how that affects your results. It has a little bit of an impact, not too much. But for example, if you think based on your research or your assumptions, Tampa is going to have a higher property growth rate, right? You can get more positive outcomes. Compare that with rental. Let's say it stays the same. Again, that's going to be still more positive outcomes for your property growth. You can try different assumptions with a whole bunch of different things, but I hope you guys can see how just a couple of different assumptions, just a little bit of research can give you a really good idea of what would be the best option for you, considering all the different factors. And again, this just goes just in the financial aspects of buying a home versus renting a home. This doesn't cover any of the psychological aspects or emotional aspects of being able to own your own home. This is just purely looking at the finances, looking at the assumptions, what the rental cost would be per year, how much you'd be paying per year for ownership of the home. Different down payments can have a different effect. And you can just play around with the numbers and see what option would be the best for you in your given situation. And obviously, the better the research, the better assumptions, the more accurate you're going to be.
All right, so I hope that shows you just how easy it can be to compare renting versus buying in your market. The Excel file with all the links on it is included in the video description below. However, if you are investing to grow your net worth beyond buying a home, you need the right strategy. If you want to understand the best way to maximize your return, then watch my video on how Warren Buffett invests. Thanks for watching. See you next time.